So for those of you who have been watching our videos, maybe I'll say hi. For those of you who have been watching our videos kind of all the way since March, and those of you who have joined us along the way and started watching since then, we've talked a lot about your work pajama pants and your home pajama pants. So I thought that this week we would go through and do kind of like an intro to garment sewing and walk you through actually making some pajama pants, because like I've said, they're easy sewing, but if you have no frame of reference for how to read a garment pattern or any of those things, it would be super helpful to watch that happen. So we're gonna spend a few days hanging out making pajama pants. So today I'm just gonna go through the things you might need and talk about some of the notions that are gonna make your life happy. The nice thing about pajama pants is if you have a sewing machine or a serger or both, you can make pajama pants. You don't necessarily need a serger. So I'll show you how to do the steps that you would do on a serger or on a sewing machine, and vice versa, and how to kind of read a pattern for where you might need to add length or shorten stuff. I'm gonna make some kids pajama pants because both my kids need some, and one of them is super long and skinny, and the other one is quite tall but quite squat. So what I need to do for both of them is quite different, and I'll walk you through that as well. What might you need for pajama pant week? So pajama pant week, Dawn for the display today pulled all knit fabric. So these are like a jersey knit. Pretty comfy, pretty easy to move around in. There's some pajama pants that call for knits. There's some that call for wovens. So flannel, knits, regular quilting cotton, all of those work great for pajama pants. You just want to make sure that the pattern you're using is appropriate for the type of fabric you've picked. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. So let's talk patterns first, and what you need to be reading when you're reading your patterns, because that'll be the first thing you need to be aware of when your pattern's going to tell you how much fabric you need. So that would be the first step the first thing I would pick is the pattern. Well, that's not true. I have a hoard of fabric at home, but I just buy extra because I don't know what I'm making with it. So we carry quick sew and cashmerette. Cashmerette doesn't really have a pajama pattern per se, but some of their tops and activewear would probably work. So I'm going to make kids stuff, and the kids sizing from Quick Sew is fairly straightforward, and I would say kind of close to actual ages, unless your kids are tall and skinny or short and squat, which I have one of each. So we need to make adjustments on their patterns and make big around the waist and then make them shorter for one kid, and the other kid I need to make them small around the waist and longer. They're lots of fun. But when you're reading a pattern, kind of the first couple things you're going to notice up at the top is suggested fabrics. So this particular fabric calls for cotton. That usually means like a woven cotton types, broadcloth, flannel, silk types. All of those are woven fabrics. So this garment is going to work well in woven fabrics. The next thing you're going to want to take care of before you get too excited here is figure out how big of measure whoever you're going to make pajama pants for. If you're making these as a gift, for kids specifically, usually judging by the age range, you can get pretty darn close to what's going to fit properly. So I know that my daughter, there's inches and centimeters in here. 55 inches. Is that how tall she is? She's not. Oh, she might be 55 inches. 4'9". Yeah, 55 inches is probably about right for her height. But I also know that she's all leg. And then waist and hips, she's probably in that size range as well. So you're going to want to pay attention to this. I would make notes as to what size. So looking back at our pattern here, I'm going to I don't have anything pokey to point with. So you'll want to take measurements of chest and hips and waist depending on what type of garment you're making. Hip measurement and waist measurement are pretty important for fitting up over wide hips or little pot bellies, whatever the case is. And using that size, that if you know you need a large, the next thing you're going to want to make sure of is that you buy enough fabric. Otherwise, you're just going to make short pants for your kids or for yourself. My tripod's tipping slowly. And then you need to double check on how wide your fabric is. So most of the garment fabrics, like the knits that we have, are closer to 60 inches wide. Most of our quilting cottons are 40 to 44 inches. So keep that in mind. You might need a little bit extra just for depending how the pattern lays out. And 3 1/4 yards or 3 meters of a 45-inch wide fabric. So if you're buying flannel and you need to make a size 10 pant, you need 3 meters. The other thing that you need to pay attention to is fabric requirement allows for nap or one-way designs or shading. So none of the fabrics that Dawn pulled back here today have direction to them. But if you had something where you had faces or words, you don't want to have one pant like all upside down. You would look really ridiculous, which is okay if these are actually only like in bed sleeping pajamas. But if they're your work at home pajamas or your daytime school pajamas, you'll want to make sure to get a little bit extra fabric to account for that. Other things you might need is thread. You might need buttons for the shirts if you've got a pattern that you're doing a shirt for as well. And then if you're only making pants or shirt or both, you need to account for that as well. So that's what's going on there. So kid sizes are definitely easier to start with, but if there's no children in your life, then you'll want to sew for the adults, you know. So the adult ladies patterns, kind of the same thing. You'll need to measure hips and waist. Finished inside seam. This is a really important number. I don't remember if that was on the kids pattern or not. Oh, it was on the inside seam. Key information: inside leg seam, the finished length. This is how I know that these pants, a size 10 waist, is going to fit my daughter, but she needs at least the length of the extra large, if not longer, because she's so lanky. So keep that in mind. If you've got short legs or long legs, keep that in mind when you're picking. The 5-inch length on this pattern is the shorts, and you can lengthen shorts as well so they come down long enough for you. But measure yourself and then figure out your yardage for the pattern. And this one, going back here as well. Suggested fabrics: interlock, textured knits, thermal knits, pointelle, jersey. This would be our t-shirt knits. They are listed on the website under jersey for the most part. So that's your keyword there. Designed for stretch knits only, with 25% stretch across the grain. And down at the bottom of this envelope, it shows how much this needs to stretch. And if you're looking at this, let me demo this. So what that means is this pattern is designed to let you move in it as long as you have a stretchy enough fabric. So if you start with that 4 inches of fabric there, it should stretch at least to there. So when it's relaxed, it's 4 inches, and then it stretches out to 5 for that 25% stretch. So that's what you're looking for when you're reading anything with a knit in the pattern, is pay attention to how much stretch your pattern requires so that your clothes fit properly. kind of making sense. But there's all sorts of cute patterns. Some have tops with them, some don't. I don't usually make pajama tops, because my kids have lots of t-shirts. But same thing here. Is your fabric 45 inches wide or 60? Are you making the tops, or are you making just the pants? How much fabric do you need, based on what size you are? Finished inside seam length. There. Finished garment measurements. Width at the bottom of the leg. Doesn't really tell you how big it is around the hips. But pajama pants usually have lots of ease, and they don't have to fit like jeans. Which is the best part about sewing pajama pants. Same thing here. There's pajama pants. Nice and easy. But follow the yardage. You'll be much happier. And our pattern where the abs are not included with the kind gentleman on the front. Also multiple sizes. But learn to sew. Quick start. Easy, easy, easy pattern to start with. It's just pajama pants. I've done this one for my hubby. In both pants and shorts. And once you know a pattern's fitting, it's really easy to keep doing it over and over and over again. So, the other things I'm going to recommend right away is Waistband Elastic. And I know probably everybody's had pants where the elastic rolls and folds inside the waistband, and they're uncomfortable all the time. The key to that is finding a stable waistband elastic. So this stuff doesn't crunch very much. It's got some ribbing in it that gives it structure and keeps it flat. Those pants are going to lay, if you use that elastic, it's going to lay way flatter in your pants. So Waistband Elastic is called Woven Poly Waistband. And we've got it in black or white. And the good thing is, it's inside your pajama pants, so it doesn't matter what color you put in. The black might show up under a really light white garment, but usually I just buy, I don't know, 10 meters when I buy a waistband elastic and go on a pajama pant making binge. And the nice thing is this elastic isn't like the hot commodity that all the skinny elastic is for making masks. It's great, right? Waistband elastic. Let's move all Dawn's pretty display. The other thing that I'm going to recommend is not using the paper pattern and cutting it all to pieces. Like I said, I have 2 kids and I've made them each pairs of pajama pants from the same pattern a couple of times. So usually what I do is I trace out the sizes that I need on something similar to this stuff. Normally I use Pattern-Ease, but unfortunately it's one of the many things that just doesn't seem to exist at the moment. So this is Pellon 810 wide white. It's thin like tissue paper, but it's easy to pin through, it's easy to trace onto, and pretty lightweight, so easy to lay out your pattern pieces on here and trace off your paper pattern from your pattern envelope. So I trace all my pieces this way, and then I can reuse my paper pattern over and over without destroying that really delicate tissue by pinning through it excessively and cutting it at the smallest size when kids don't stay the smallest size for long. This is 43 inches wide, so that'll cover most pieces in a pair of pajama pants. You might have to get some of that today, tomorrow. You'll probably also need some pins. So silk pins will go through really gently on your knit fabrics, or dressmaker's pins. They'll be gentle on your knits. You'll probably want needles. If you're working with the jersey knits, I would buy jersey needles that are 80s or 90s, depending on what thread you're using. And that jersey needle suggestion will be the same whether you're using a sewing machine or a serger. And then thread. I would get thread that coordinates with your pants, and you don't need a ton of thread for pajama pants. I generally buy 2 spools of every color I buy, just because I always end up using it. But if I was sewing this nice gray knit, I'd buy this gray thread, and then you're set. If you're using a serger, you can stock up on fancy colored threads, but you really only need to have thread to match. If you're trying to match that pink fabric, you only need to have your thread to match your fabric on your left needle on your serger, because that's the actual seam line that will show to the outside of your garment if your tension's not quite right. So by all means, stock up and buy 4 spools of pink thread, because it'll be really cute inside your pajama pants, or 4 spools of green. But usually I just buy 1 of the fancy color that I need and run gray or white for the rest of it. What other things might you need? You might also need, if you don't have a serger, you might need some way of finishing your seams. An overlocking foot is going to be the magic foot to keep your seams nice and clean when you finish the seams. I'll demo that probably Thursday. But an overlock foot is number 2 or 2A from Bernina. And from Brother, it's a G is the name of that foot. The G comes with most Brother machines. So you might not need to buy one of these. You might already have both of those in your arsenal of goodies at home. And then other fun pajama pant patterns. Pajama pants with ruffles. Maybe not your first pair, but pretty darn cute. Or a matching pillowcase and bag. And the other thing you should do once you get your fabric before you make your pajama pants is pre-wash your fabric in the same manner which you intend to wash the finished garment. So pick your fabric, pre-wash your fabric. Most of these knits don't shrink very much, but it would be a shame to have a perfect fitting garment, have it go through the wash and then have a not perfect fitting garment afterwards. And so pre-wash. My kids' stuff gets washed in cold and dried on hot, so that's how I pre-wash fabric for my kids' clothes, and it seems to work fairly well. Handmade garments would be much happier hung to dry or laid flat to dry, but that's not how I roll. I'm way too lazy with my laundry. So that's the plan for the week. We are going to make pajama pants right from scratch. You get to watch me cut and sew and press and all those fun things, and then hopefully you feel brave enough to give it a try yourself. And you're off to the races. Let's see how fast we can make pajama pants this week. We'll make a woven pair and a knit pair and show you some of the differences that you need to be aware of. Thanks for checking in today, guys. I hope everybody's having a fantastic Monday. And enjoy the sunshine, but not too much. Thank you guys. Have a safe Monday, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.